Money FM 89.3, the best of Saturday mornings. International News Review.
And we are back with the International News Review. Starting off with Pakistan and India, the Pakistani military says it has begun an operation against India in retaliation against recent so-called Indian aggression. Pakistan responds, is what they are saying, Steve Okun. This is one of the most dangerous moments in that bilateral relationship in quite some time. What do you make of it?
Well, as President Trump said, these strikes are a shame. He hopes the fighting would end quickly, but the two have been fighting for centuries. Now, of course, Pakistan was only founded in 1947.
Not quite centuries, but
not quite centuries.
Since partition, anyway.
This is as dangerous as it has been, certainly in the last decade or so, and certainly for maybe even going back further than that. And what makes this more dangerous is that the U.S. has refused to engage as it has done in the past. J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, says this is, quote unquote, fundamentally none of our business. And he adds that he hopes and expects that this is not going to spiral into a broader regional war or, God forbid, a nuclear conflict. Well, if you don't want it to become a nuclear conflict, do something about it. And this is very different. Now, you can go talk about Jimmy Carter in the Middle East, and you could talk about Bill Clinton in Yugoslavia. But look at Donald Trump in his first term, where Mike Pompeo, his Secretary of State, and John Bolton, the National Security Advisor, diffused a very tense situation between India and Pakistan in 2019. And so without the Americans being involved in here at all, and it's really only the Americans who have the relationship with India and Pakistan, this could be different than getting solved as it has been done in the past.
Could it change? I mean, you're seeing slightly conflicting views. Yes, J.D. Vance said this is fundamentally none of our business, but also Marco Rubio, U.S. Secretary of State, said there is an urgent need for immediate de-escalation. If this continues, and there's no reason to suggest it won't, will at some point the US and others be forced to intervene in some way?
Well, others are trying now, and you hear others going to the region. But again, this is where the United States has been historically the indispensable nation, the guarantor of security to keep things like this from escalating out of control. Now, let's hope that India and Pakistan both recognize that they need to look for off-ramps, that this is only going to end badly for both of them if the escalation continues. And it's quite possible that India and Pakistan will find a way to resolve this without the direct intervention of the United States or of others. But it is going to be more difficult this time than otherwise. I think the status quo view of geopolitics, I am not and don't pretend to be an India-Pakistan expert, is that they will find a way to de-escalate and find some way to get to the status quo ante, but it's going to be more difficult this time, and there's a lot of concern for miscalculation, of course.
You was in Bangkok this week, I believe. What is the view from the business community? Obviously, we have investments from both countries in this part of the world.
In terms of India, I think just adding on, this is another thing we now need to watch. What's going to happen in Ukraine? What's going to happen in Gaza? We've got the U.S. and China having their first talks really under the Trump administration coming up right now, this weekend. And now you throw on India, Pakistan, which could be the most dangerous of all of them. Again, I think the hope is that, and you can look at signs that there's off-ramps, that India is not responding to certain things that Pakistan has done and vice versa, and that there's news blackouts, and that keeps domestic pressure from accelerating on both governments. But it is something that certainly the business community, investors, people everywhere need to be watching what's happening at that border.
The G7 ministers, the EU, everyone is calling for de-escalation. It's not just, I think, solely on the U.S., although your point is taken that the U.S. does have an outsized relationship with both countries. But this goes back many, many, many decades with, Hindu majority India, Muslim majority Pakistan, each trying to control parts of Kashmir. And, it's just so hard to see. I think was it 2 years ago? They had another huge skirmish up there. Guys are literally hand-to-hand combat with each other. And
very hard to see a de-escalation.
It's just hard.
Pakistan has just, in the last hour, closed its entire airspace to all air traffic whatsoever.
Yeah.
Pakistan's military says it's hit sites in India. So we're seeing escalation here as we sit here now.
It's something that we need to keep a close eye on, and it cannot get lost in the noise of what else is going on in the world, because this is so important, especially with the nuclear powers that are involved in this.
But I'll go again. But I'm going back to other nations getting involved. Secretary Pompeo, Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, in Trump's first term, said that the world does not know how close India-Pakistan came. That rivalry came to spilling over into a nuclear conflagration in February 2019. And Pompeo wrote that no other nation would have done what we did as the United States at that time to avoid a horrible outcome. And Pompeo is right. It is only the U.S. that has the power to go into this situation. The U.S. isn't solving Ukraine, Russia. The U.S. isn't solving Gaza, Israel. But it can make a difference in Gaza. Israel has chosen not to, and it can make a difference here. And let's hope it does and recognize that the U.S. has to step in.
Sadly, I don't think they will, even after all we've seen, all the promises about Ukraine and Gaza and all that going unheeded. I seriously can't imagine Trump is going to care about this.
No.
And that is just a fact of
there's no deal.
The way this goes. Yeah, there's nothing in it for him. So anyway, okay, let's move on, because the deal that is apparently happening is Trump and Starmer. Nice segue, huh?
Yeah. I'm just laughing at the deal. This UK-US
the deal, non-deal. Okay.
Oh, dear.
So Trump and Starmer from the UK are confirming what they're calling a breakthrough US-UK trade deal announcement. This announcement yesterday makes it the UK the first country to agree to a deal with Trump since the tariffs came into effect in April. Some stocks were up, like Aston Martin and Rolls-Royce, and others. Steve, is it a real deal? Is it a deal that might change? How real is the deal?
Look, ignore what the leaders say. Ignore what Trump says.
Okay, so then we can move on to the next story.
No, go to what the lawyers are saying. What the U.S. trade officials have said, and they have called this a economic prosperity deal, not a trade agreement. It's an economic prosperity deal. I don't know what that means legally, and in fact, on the front of the USTR announcement, it says both the United States and the United Kingdom recognize that this document does not constitute a legally binding agreement.
So what are we talking about, right? I mean, come on. It's just ridiculous.
Well, this shows there are a couple significant things that we have learned out of this, whatever it is, whatever we want to call it, right, is that one, the United States is not rolling back its 10% baseline tariff, its universal tariff for anybody. Because if they aren't going to eliminate it for the UK, then which the United States has a trade surplus with, like the United States has a trade surplus with Singapore, which has this 10% universal tariff on Singapore. A world with a 10% universal tariff is very different than what we have ever seen, really, in any modern era of globalization and trade. And this is going to have a significant impact on the global economy, on Singapore's economy, on Southeast Asia's economy, if we just keep this 10% universal tariff. So it looks like that is going to be the case. The second thing we take from this whatever we call it, that the U.S. and the U.K. have agreed to, is that the only thing the U.S. is going to engage in is tit for tat bargaining. It is not looking to have these broader free trade agreements. Okay, the U.K., we're going to allow 100,000 Rolls Royces in to the United States, and in return, you're going to take 13,000 metric tons of our beef and 1.4 billion liters.
They won't,
of
but
ethanol.
carry on. They won't.
Well, no, I think
won't.
they will if that is what they're going to get for the trade-off of only having a 10% minimum tariff with exceptions. That's what Britain's going to have to agree to.
They'll have to change their laws on health and safety. They can't even take the chlorinated chicken from the US because they don't meet and they don't meet the EU standards either. And if that's the case, then UK risks jeopardising current existing agricultural deals with the EU, because the EU can come back and say, well, if you're going to take this chlorinated chicken and this dodgy beef from the US, why should we uphold the deals you currently have with us if you're lowering your standards, your food standards for the US? It's not as simple as that.
The chicken's not involved here. It's just the beef. And
Correct.
They're
not taking the chicken.
They're not taking the chicken.
Will they take the eggs? Chicken or egg? I don't know.
But this is it.
Which will come first?
So that is, I mean, that shows this isn't an agreement. This is a promise to work towards an agreement down the road.
This is all so frustrating, Steve.
Well,
it's
I
just
think
so frustrating.
This shows what Donald Trump's America First trade policy is. It is about protecting the U.S. domestic market. It is about having high tariffs on the thought that it is going to bring manufacturing back to the United States. This is not about removing trade barriers. It's not really about having a level playing field. It is about protecting the United States and bringing manufacturing back home. And if we now get what the purpose of the tariffs are, we're going to have to live in a much different world, a non-globalized world that is going to have barriers everywhere.
Okay, let me just recap this briefly. So just to recap for our listeners, this was about reducing the 27.5% tariffs that he had originally imposed on the UK cars. Starmer is now celebrating that he's had that 27.5% knocked off, but the original 10% tariffs still remain. Tariffs that did not exist a few weeks ago, months ago, whatever. So are we reaching this ridiculous stage now, Steve? And I'm quoting The Guardian, which says, the modus operandi now seems to be that you flatter the school bully, laugh at his jokes, and hope he doesn't take any more of your lunch money. That's all that's happened here. He's only taking 10% of the UK's lunch money instead of 27%. Thanks to flattery, thanks to whatever. Is that it now? Is that where we are with geopolitics? Flatter the playground bully and hope he doesn't take all your lunch money?
And you're going to make me defend Starmer, so I'll do it a little bit. He did get some exceptions for the business that he needs to have. He does get the 100,000 British-made vehicles that are going in under 10%. Steel and aluminum in the American terminology.
Aluminum.
Aluminum.
Please. We're former British colony.
Are going to be
Aluminium
granted.
in Singapore.
Going to be granted the full exemption. But there are a lot of things coming up that the British have to really be worried about. There's no mention of exemptions for pharmaceuticals. Yeah. There's no mention,
which is one of the bigger categories of imports, right?
It is, and this
into
is
the U.S.
Well, and this is something that Singapore is watching very closely as well, because while you have this 10% baseline tariff, you have reciprocal tariffs. Now Trump is looking at national security tariffs, which include health care. And if a 25% tariff gets hit on the UK and on Singapore for pharmaceuticals and biopharma and who knows what else would be included in health care from a national security perspective, that is going to have a major hit on the UK. Yeah. It is going to have a major hit in Singapore. So we're not even talking about the next round of tariffs. So we don't know yet, Neil, if Britain gets exempted from them too. I will say Starmer did a very good thing.
Yeah.
If they don't, then then he got fleeced.
Well, and it's all a deal until it's not a deal, until Trump decides it's not, which is what we've seen already happening. So, like, what's real? I don't believe any of it's real until it's been enacted and going for 5 years or 10 years, and even then. Who knows what?
Well,
okay.
And now, if you want to talk about, British
maybe not
politics,
5 years, 3 years, 2 years.
Right? What Trump says is like the U.S. and the U.K. have been working for years to try and make a deal, and it never quite got there, but it did with this prime minister. So clearly, the conservatives in England didn't have what it took to do what the Starmer and his party did, and maybe this will help Labour and hurt the conservatives.
You're answering my question. It's bullying. It's like, thank you for not making it 27%. We're grateful it's only 10.
Right.
That's what
you
we
can
break
keep the
this-
lunch money you've already stolen from me.
Yes, exactly.
I just won't give you much more.
And 100,000 cars in the grand scheme of
What is
things.
that? It's nothing.
What is that,
Yeah,
Steve?
yeah.
It's nothing.
Hey, that's more $100,000 Rolls Royces that Elon Musk and Donald Trump and others don't have to pay tariffs.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. We talked earlier a bit about Pope Leo the 14th. 15, 14. Yeah, 14. I'm counting my Roman numerals. He is the guy, an American for the first time. And what is there anything we can add that we didn't talk about earlier with him? I mean, otherwise we can just move on to something else.
No, I mean, I would just say.
I think we kind of said it all, didn't we, in the lead into the show?
Well, this is in this era of the rewriting of the rules-based order in geopolitics and shifting alliances. Will he make more of a difference being from the U.S., being an American than he would have otherwise? So I think it's obviously we don't have any playbook to know what an American as Pope will do from a geopolitical perspective. It is certainly something that will be fascinating to watch if it does have an impact.
Is the Vatican spared tariffs? That's what people really want to know. Are they going to be tariff-free now?
Well, universal means universal, and you're hitting penguins, so why wouldn't you hit the Pope?
Oh, my word. I don't know. Very strange times. But look, it's a great day for America. They need a bit of positive geopolitical soft power news, and this is what they've had.
I'm very disappointed, Neil. You didn't get my very, very slight Blues Brothers reference right there.
I didn't. I did. It is nearly 50 years old, that film.
Interestingly, Pope Leo mentioned Pope Francis twice in his opening homily. And I think that is probably the bigger issue. America, yes, that's great, whatever, we can discuss that. But the bigger issue is going to be the direction of the church. Will it go – because there are a lot of hardline Catholics in the U.S., it's my understanding, that were not happy with Pope Francis and the way he was adjudicating the business of the church. It seems possible that Pope Leo might be following in that tradition. Pope Francis was from Argentina. Pope Leo has a dual passport with Peru and spent a lot of time there working with the poor. So that I think is going to be the more interesting part of this story. How does that play out, and what position how does he position the Catholic Church going forward?
Yeah, look, and Americans are becoming less religious over time. Can this stem part of that defection away from all religions, and certainly, obviously, the Catholic Church, bring people to church more often because there's an American there, somebody that they can relate to, somebody they see literally at baseball games, somebody who went to a U.S. college? All of these things we've just never watched, and it'll be interesting to follow.
All right, let's move on. The funnest story of the day for me. Anyway, a U.S. warship that the U.S. and the Philippine armed forces were going to sink this week actually beat them to that challenge. The former U.S. World War II era ship called it's the decommissioned, now it's the BRP Miguel Malvar. It used to be called something else in the U.S. It was
USS Brattleboro.
Brattleboro, yes. And they were towing it out into the ocean before there was going to be live fire exercises on this old ship. It had been emptied of all its fuel and all that sort of stuff. And it started taking on water in heavy seas and sank. Talk about an anticlimax. I mean, the guys with their finger on the trigger ready to shoot must have been depressed about that.
Well,
maybe they all went back to base and had a beer or something.
A statement from the Armed Forces of the Philippines said the vessel was selected because it exceeded its service life and was no longer suitable for normal operations. Talk about an understatement.
You got a feel for the sailors who were on it just like 2 weeks ago.
But the fate, why then? It could have sunk at any time in the previous weeks, months, years. Why on that particular day? Did they not have anybody? I'm not an expert, an architect, an engineer, somebody who can plug a leak, a plumber, to see that this thing is taking water.
So one of the analyses that I read was, when they decommission these things, they take out all the stuff that could have could harm the environment.
Yep.
Right. Engine, the oil, the gas, the fuel.
Correct.
And so normally the engine that would be on a ship like that would have the pumps pumping out water that is seeping in, which happens nonstop with
You
ships.
think they would know this, right?
And apparently, when the morning they were taking it out, there were high seas, and they were towing it out, and so there were high seas, and it started taking on water, and more water, and there was nothing there to bail out the water. I think that's what the investigation is going to reveal.
They needed a plumber. They should have called my father. My father's nickname, because he'd always have to plug leaks, his own leaks. His nickname was Callback John, because they'd always have to call him back. He'd fit a bath, there'd be a leak, he'd have to go back and plug the leak. So they should have called Callback John. How
There
they
you go.
didn't spot this leak, Steve, I'll never know.
Funny. It's funny. Lots of things happen in the Philippines we can't figure out. But anyway,
Yeah.
It was good. Okay, that's it for today. Steve, we are going to miss you for the next few weeks. You are going to be on a whirlwind trip with your family.
Wonderful.
Have fun. U.S., Europe. You're going to be all over the place. Hope
Yes,
hope you have a safe trip.
Hard to believe Mason graduates from college.
Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And then you guys are not far behind.
And he's the younger one. I
he's
remember
the
when the
younger-
older one, Bennett, was here interning.
Yeah.
And he's working on big Hollywood movie sets now and things.
Yes, and Bennett will be in Colorado Springs for graduation, and then we go to Iceland.
Beautiful.
And then we go to Scotland, where I learned today, shockingly, that Neil has never been.
No.
Nor have I.
Well,
I did live a bit closer.
I've never been either. I've never been either, but
we all get out and about,
To
you know.
never been
But
there.
exactly.
And then Neil, move over once, move over twice. We're going to your hometown of London.
Yes, get into London. Get
Beautiful.
to East London. Get into a good English London pub. And have pie and mash. Pie and mash and
when
liquor.
you're in Scotland, have some haggis. You got to have some haggis.
Did you not get my one after 909 reference?
I did. No, I didn't.
Did
What
you?
was it?
I said move over once, move over twice. We're going to
see,
London.
they're too deep for me, Steve.
We
right.
talked about it this morning.
This is why you get the big
And
bucks.
We talked
we're
about
out.
it this morning.
Goodbye, Steve.
See you in a month.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.